What's up, everybody? This is the Ike's Inspirations podcast, and today I got a good friend, Nick. And my friend Nick is has a lot going on. He has a thriving business. He's a fitness trainer, and he has a lot of wisdom to teach people. And I'm so excited to have you on for this podcast, Nick. So can you please do us a favor and just introduce yourself and give us a little bit brief description of your life story? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Nick Capolino. Mi chiamo es Nicholas Alfredo Capolino Vendra.
Hey.
And some people will call me a fitness trainer. Some people will call me a coach. I tend to stay away from labels because
Okay.
labels come with baggage.
Sure.
So, I can tell you, though, that my legacy and my mission right now is to create safe and intimate containers for men
Okay.
to embark on their personal growth journey in community and brotherhood. And I guess the reason that came about, a little bit about me is, I guess we all have, our own childhood stories.
Hmm.
And, that I didn't really have. I always wrote down a brother for Christmas.
Hmm.
I always wanted a brother.
Okay.
I have a half brother, but he's 18 years older than me. And my father was always in and out of the house. He's alcoholic, drug addict. He was in the Vietnam War. He suffers from PTSD. And even my mom had a lot of health issues.
Okay.
So that for me gave me a really strong reason to make sure I avoid that. Right?
Mm.
Like why I even got interested in health and wellness in the first place. I just wanted
Mm.
that to happen to me.
Hmm.
And so then I went to college and I studied acting. I actually got my degree at Cal State Fullerton in acting. And
Okay.
we did yoga, we did meditation, we learned about voice and movement, chakra embodiment, and activating
Hmm.
your hormone centers and in different ways that most people don't get to explore, and has now become the foundation for a lot of my teaching and training other men. And then I realized acting wasn't fulfilling. That wasn't my purpose. So I stepped into being a trainer, fitness trainer, and then I worked for companies like 24 Hour Fitness and started at the bottom at yoga studios and LA Fitness, and uh, then I moved up into higher facilities like Bay Clubs and Equinox and Lifetime, and even while doing that, um, I knew there was something inside of me that I needed to pursue my own entrepreneurial endeavor, right?
Yes.
Entrepreneurial endeavor, right? So
Yes.
you mentioned too, and the reason what kicked that off was COVID.
Mm.
So I COVID was the reason I had to pivot and create my own online business
Hmm.
because I was teaching 20, 25 classes and then COVID hit and it was shut down.
Wow.
And so while a lot of people were like panicking and getting stuck and frustrated and didn't know what to do, I pivoted. I was like, oh, I need to create my own online business. I can't
Yeah.
be doing this. So that's where, I actually started filming content. I started putting everything that I learned and had been training into programs.
Hmm.
I started learning about system acquisition and marketing and working
Hmm.
with other business coaches.
Hmm.
And I think that was what accelerated my growth was I learned from other mentors,
Hmm.
and that propelled me into creating where I'm at right now. So
Yeah. Bro, I'm so glad to have met you. We met in Atlanta, and the way we met in Atlanta was, we were at an elevator, and you saw this book that I was reading, and I think it was some book on psychedelics, and you pointed it out, and you're like, "Hey, man, like, that's a good book or something." And I was like, "Oh man, I think you and I are intertwined." And then ever since then, it's been a beautiful relationship. And you invited me to several retreats, and man, well, I tell you, those retreats, they're very powerful. I think I think whenever I go to those retreats, I come out feeling very inspired, and I think you do a great job of fulfilling your purpose of creating space for men to fully be themselves and to have those deep conversations and be introspective about what truly matters to us. You know what I'm saying? What inspires us to want to keep going forward? And you created that space for me, man, and I'm grateful for that. Can you speak more towards how you do that for men and like the business behind it? Because I think what you got going on with all the retreats you create for men is very unique, and I don't see that space created often. Can you talk about how you do that?
Yeah, so it's been an evolution for
Okay.
sure. I haven't always created space for men. In fact, that recently evolved over the last 2, 3 years, even though I've been teaching in the health and wellness space since 2016.
Hmm.
So I think what pivoted to specifically being with men was realizing that in some of the retreats that I had been in, the classes that I was teaching, and the workshops I was doing, and the partnerships, it was predominantly women.
Mm.
I realized that, you know what? Men are the ones really in need. Like, men have become so isolated.
Mm.
I call, society, or the matrix, if you will, has
Yes.
created programs of lack and limitations, and this lone wolf syndrome, and
Hmm.
that, the patriarchy. I don't want to go too much into detail
For
about that,
sure.
but some of the most powerful, and not like powerful people being in power over others, but some of
Yeah.
the most divinely willpowered things in the world have come when men learn to love and support
Mm.
one another.
I agree.
And that's real intimacy, right?
Hmm.
Men in haven't don't have spaces to be intimate with one another.
Hmm.
And when we do, society will call that and put a label. Oh, that's gay. Oh, and
Yes.
most men don't want to do that because that'll perceive them as being weak.
Weak.
This
Yes.
has nothing to do with your sexual orientation.
Yes.
Work with now a diverse and all-inclusive group of men, because men are malnourished in one getting that love and that support from their,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think that's why it called to me, because I realized how malnourished I was growing up as a child.
Mm.
But I also realized I grew up playing a lot of sports.
Okay.
So I grew up playing baseball through high school, even into college, and I love sports. But
Mhm.
there's only so much you get out of going to a baseball game or watching a football game
Yes.
with guys. You don't get this level of intimacy that most men are craving. Well,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong about doing those things. I love to do that. I love going to sporting events. It's just
Mhm.
not the depth that most
Yes.
need. And so when I realized that, I was like, this is a calling. This is me stepping into this, creating these containers, creating wellness experiences, creating retreats, creating events and workshops where men could really sit down and reflect,
Yes.
and then share that with other men, and realize that you aren't alone in this, and that
Yes.
feeling empowered through your vulnerabilities, sharing your struggles, sharing your challenges, and getting strategies to overcome that with other men, it's so empowering. And I think that's what you've experienced.
Yeah, man. You said so many great stuff, man. And I think what you're saying about men is so true, man. I think deep down, a lot of us we suffer in silence, and unfortunately, we're not in a society where we can actually speak about what is actually bothering us. We don't have environments for us to actually talk about where we're going or what we want or why we're struggling. A lot of us deal with depression, a lot of us deal with all these issues, and when we're going through these issues, talking about it almost feels emasculating. Like, man, why am I talking about this? Or sometimes your boy would be like, yo, shut up, bro, and just figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of hard to want to talk to somebody about these issues. And that's why, men, we can have a tendency to be violent because we have all this pent up frustration, and because we have no one to talk to, or no healthy outlet to get our anger out, it can result in some type of shooting massacre, or some type of physical violence, because we don't have anybody to talk to. And so what you're doing, I think, is so important, because you're teaching us emotional regulation. You're teaching us how to get in core with ourselves, and you're teaching us ultimately how to be better men. And I think what you're doing is very, very necessary. You know what I'm saying? Can you kind of speak more about it? Because I've went to these retreats with you in Atlanta, and they're, if I had to say one word that describes it, I would say it's very intimate. Like, I connect with men on a level that I've never have done before. Like, we're having such deep conversations, and it's not just me saying this. When I'm in these groups, all these other men are like, "Bro, I've never done such introspective inner work in my life." Can you talk about that more in depth, and how you're able to create a community like that for people, for men? Because that's hard to do. Men don't open up. Yo, I was in your retreat and we were fucking crying, bro, and we didn't even know each other, dude. Like, that's not common, bro. So how are you doing that? You know?
Yeah. So I've learned something really powerful, and this is it. We cannot shame and judge ourselves to change. We can only learn to love and appreciate and support our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And society, what you're talking about, and other men and other people are usually, and even ourselves, we're so hard on ourselves. We're so judgmental. We're in that survival state of criticizing ourselves and
Yes.
negative self-talk and putting ourselves down. And that's the survival mind that most of us operate from.
Mm-hmm.
When you step aside, and rather we acknowledge that it's there, that we all have that it's not something that we should shame, that it's not something we should judge, it's not something that we should criticize. Rather, it's something we need to accept.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I would describe it as the part of you, it's the little boy inside of you who's scared,
Mm.
who's hurt, who's angry and frustrated. And he's having a temper tantrum, and what do your parents do? Hey, stop crying. Don't,
Yes.
you're gonna make me cry. Stop crying. Stop doing this.
Yes.
Behave. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
then we build all this tension up over it, over expressing our emotions.
Yes.
Look at expressing our emotions as weak.
Yes.
Like, we're not man up. Like, man up. Like, stop
Mm-hmm.
being a pussy. And it's like, all of these old paradigms are not supporting and loving us. They're shaming us,
Mm-hmm.
judging us. It's only further pushing us away from stepping in, as you would say, that intimacy, right? So when
Yeah.
I create these spaces, I ask you to inquire about these challenges. Like, where do you judge yourself? Where
Yeah.
have you been shamed about yourself? And let's talk about it. And rather than reinforcing the shame and the judgment, it's like, that little boy who's scared, who's upset, who's sad. It's just like, oh, it's okay. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
leave you. I'm not going to
Yes.
abandon you. I'm here to support you. I'm here to love you. Let's take you into the love. Let's bring you into the light, that
Mm-hmm.
light consciousness.
Yeah, man.
A lot of the times we have to do that through some embodiment work, right? So that's
Yeah.
where, my expertise has comes in. While like talking about it is great and therapy is great, usually a lot of my men come to me and they've gone through therapy, or they've done the talking and things like that, but they haven't embodied it.
Yes.
Where the Eastern philosophy, where some of my practices and modalities and training around like qigong,
Mm-hmm.
yoga and
Mm-hmm.
meditation, a variety of healing modalities, pranic healing, all these modalities that I've learned to kind of embody that
Mm-hmm.
love, that peace, and
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in community, it can be very powerful. That's how I'm able to take these, as you said, strangers, and
Yeah.
ultimately just become like best friends and family.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's a very valuable skill that honestly I don't think I don't often experience in that in a group where, you, especially around men. Like, I've never met any of these men before. And I remember I went to two of these retreats, and after a couple hours, there's men literally just crying in front of me, like, yo, man, like, for whatever issue. And I found that very fascinating, because I typically find it hard for men to peel off the mask that they're all hiding from, or just people in general. So, salute to you. And I feel like if you can continue to provide that emotional value, I can understand why your business is so successful. And, talking about business, I kind of want to talk a lot more about, the pandemic and how that affected you. You something I'm very curious about is, you went from going and having a job, I believe, as a fitness trainer, onto creating your own business. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between creating your own business and actually building your business, working for yourself, versus creating working for somebody else? Like, what's the difference for, and like, what are some of the difficulties and what are some of the pros of that? You
Yeah,
know?
I think one, if the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, they
Mm,
had somebody there on their side. The greatest
mm,
athletes, the greatest actors, the greatest entrepreneurs, they all have mentors, right?
yes.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I always tell us men, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but by getting a mentor or a coach or somebody who's going to train you, is just going to be there helping you make better decisions. It's taking you from point A to point B and accelerating your growth. So that
Mm,
was really pivotal for me, getting mentors, getting the support. And I think on a personal level, going from like, yeah, I was a group fitness instructor, right? So teaching a variety of
yes.
classes, cycling classes, strength training classes, all these different
Yes.
classes, and taking the leap of faith, because I think that's the thing, is I think most people are scared.
Okay.
Most people are scared to step into the unknown. And again,
Yes.
talk about that survival mind. That survival mind wants that certainty. It wants
Yes.
to know when we wake up, we got a roof over our head. It wants to know when we get into our car, it's got gas to take us where we need to go. But like,
Yes.
when you step into an entrepreneurial space, you don't have that. It's all uncertainty.
Yes.
So it's a variety thing. But I can tell you this, that the only thing that is certain is that it's always changing and it's always
Hmm.
evolving. And
Yeah.
so I'd say, like, for anybody who's looking to get started as an entrepreneur, or even they are an entrepreneur, they know that they have to step into the unknown. That
Yes.
that when you make a decision, I think that's a big thing too. People are afraid to just make decisions.
Hmm.
And I've realized that my success has come from just being able to make a decision and then pivot if I need to and change.
Hmm.
Make a decision and pivot. Hire this person and then, okay,
Yes.
fire this person. Hire
Yes.
this person and then, oh, that works. And then hire another. Like, making decisions, like your ability to just make the decision and learn from that.
Yes.
I think people are so afraid of just taking that leap of faith, stepping into the unknown. And what I've realized is that when you do step into the unknown, which requires two things: a lot of commitment.
Okay.
Most people truly aren't really committed, and two, courage.
Mm.
It's scary. Of course, there's fear, but that's where courage comes in. You have to have the courage from a heart-centered place to recognize the fear and be like, I'm doing it anyways.
Yes.
And that's how you claim your divine power.
Yeah,
That's how
man.
you become successful. I think that's where my success has come from, is
Yes.
my ability to pivot and adapt, my adaptability in making decisions and just stepping into the unknown.
Man, I love everything you just said, bro. You spat so many bars and you said a lot of great things. The first thing that popped up to me is, when we're doing this entrepreneur endeavor, is something new, right? And so we're stepping into the unknown. And the quote that immediately popped up to my head is, when we're seeking certainty, is because we forget that God is our security. And we all have that problem, including me. I'm gonna be honest, bro. Doing this podcast for me is so new. It's not. I'm a very modest person. I'm stepping into my comfort zone. Putting myself out there in the world is something that it's something I'm not used to. But I'm trying to learn to be more confident in myself, be more decisive. And honestly, I actually have you to thank for, because I remember we went to one of those those retreats that we were doing, and you had me do the inner work. And I remember I'm like, you were asking me like, yo, Ike, what are you scared of, bro? Like, what are you scared of? And I'm like, what am I scared of? And I was like, bro, I don't know. I think I'm just scared of getting out of my comfort zone and not really achieving everything I'm set out to do, you know. And I think one of my biggest limiting things, and you helped me realize this, is I have a lot of self-doubt. You know, I'm always questioning myself, like, yo, can you do this? Yo, are you capable? And hearing you talk about this, like, you know, you help me relieve some of that self-doubt, you know. Another thing I like about you, what you said, is be more decisive. So it's like do it here. It's not about how, it's about doing it now, you know what I'm saying? And once you do it, then you start to the answers become a lot more clear, because you're figuring out what's not working and what's working and what's not working. And so the answers on how to move forward become more clear, because you have data that's telling you what's working and what's not working, you know. So yeah, I agree with you, bro. And I love everything you said, bro. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation. The next question I wanted to ask you about, Nick, was, you know, one thing about you that I think I find interesting is, like, you're able to create this six-figure business through helping other people train in wellness. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of curious to hear about your content marketing strategy. You know, because I'm starting this podcast off, and one of the things that's important is you got to put yourself out there. You got to advertise yourself. What do you do to market yourself successfully in your business, in order to kind of create the six-figure business that you have right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think bringing value ultimately is what people are looking for. Like,
Mm.
people are going to scroll through and they're going to be like, what is this guy talking about? You know? And of course, there's strategies of like hooks and captivating attention. And, you know, you have 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention. But somebody knows when they're being authentic and,
Mhm.
and they're storytelling. I think it's just being authentic to who you are. Like, here's what I've done and here's what worked for me.
Mhm.
That resonates with you, then that's your tribe, right? Like, I think that was my strategy on creating content, was like, here's what I've done, here's what's worked, here's just me pouring my heart out and authentically sharing my story, and then attracting who that attracts, right? Who
Mhm.
that resonates with. I think then there's also, so that's like personal, is just be authentic to who you are, and then the strategy is just add value, right? Just
Mm.
value to those people. And so for me, what that looks like now is I have kind of created and then there's the whole technical aspect where you got, all right, learn funnels, learn client acquisition, learn system acquisition, learn automations, like learn email marketing. Like, there's certain little things that you have to understand that make a
Okay.
successful business in that regard. Once you've tied that together, now where I'm at is like, I add value. I send people like a digital book, right? And that's maybe a 10-year plan. Like, I'll actually have a full length book, but it's a digital book, maybe 30 pages of kind of like the foundations of what I do. And so
Mhm.
I give that to people for free, right? As a
Mhm.
complimentary gift. And
Mhm.
then they read through and they're like, oh, this resonates with me. I want to learn more. And then they'll reach out to me, and that's how they get invited into their own wellness journey or coaching with me or these retreat experiences. uh,
Mhm.
so that's kind of like the personal side, adding value, telling your story, and
Mhm.
and then the technical side. It's actually quite simple, learning system acquisition and marketing. It's just boring. nobody
Yeah.
nobody likes doing it, but it's kind of necessary to creating a successful online business in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah, man. I love that. There's so much that you said, and I feel like for me, something that I feel like, I remember I was talking to you about your business, and I feel like one of the reasons why your business is so successful is that you're able to charge people at like such a high price. And when I heard what you were charging your clients, like thousands of dollars, I'm like, damn, bro, I don't know what I could provide to anybody that can give that much value. And I guess one of my questions I have for you is, how do you get the confidence to be like, yo, what I'm doing is great, and I'm gonna charge 1,000 or however much money you're doing to your clients. Like, how do you have that confidence to charge that much? Because quite frankly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I could do that, but it's why you're so successful in your business, you know?
Well, to be honest, that's not. I didn't start there. I
Okay.
don't think anybody starts there, right? I
Yeah.
think it's an evolution. It's and I would say confidence is you making promises to yourself that you're going to.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
as you make promises to yourself, as you build your own value from within who you are, then your value externally will start to increase, right?
Okay.
It's like, so like I started, sometimes I just started doing volunteering, offering classes and workshops on a donation basis. You see what I'm saying? And then I realized, oh, wow, I'm doing this. I'm building momentum. Okay, I'm going to charge this. And then
Hmm.
I realized, oh, wow, I actually have more value. And as I learned more and as I started gaining more value and as I started gaining more training, I started to increase my value. It wasn't just like I started and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start charging thousands of dollars for people. No, it started like $20 here. It started as donation based. It started $20, then $100. And then, okay. And I think you mentioned this before. Like, I'll share with you one moment that really sticks out was my first international retreat. It
Wow.
was a huge leap of faith because if anybody's doing retreats, like you have to like international retreats, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Thousands of dollars that I'm investing of my own money, right? That
Hmm.
I'm putting down on a credit card or I'm taking out a loan to just be like, boom, or I've saved up thousands to be like, all right, I'm taking the leap of faith and I'm ready. So I think like looking back on that, I think about it almost every day. The first retreat I did was international was in Croatia.
Wow.
And I think about that moment of just like there was a moment where we mountain biked up the Plitvice Lakes,
Okay. Yeah.
this beautiful, naturally preserved waterfalls and lakes. And I just remember feeling that sense of freedom, like
Mm.
riding the mountain bike and having a group of people with me and our tour guide, and just being like, wow, this moment will stay with me forever. And
Wow.
I think about that quite often as a sense of fulfillment. So when I'm like, oh, should I invest? Should I go here? Should I not do it? I think about that and I remind myself, no, you need the commitment, you have the courage. And if you want to create more experiences like that, you have to have the leap of faith. You just gotta get out there and do it.
Bro, man, that's awesome that you said that. Man, that's also another thing I wanted to talk to you about because you do a lot of these international retreats. I know you got one coming up in Italy pretty soon, and I was just kind of curious to also hear about your retreat experiences. You're so well traveled. You've been to Croatia. You're going to Italy, and I know I remember when we were doing these retreats, you had other people from different states come all the way to Atlanta. And I'm like, damn, like this guy must have some pretty strong relationships that people are gonna fly all the way to another city just to, see Nick. So I'm kind of curious about your experiences at your retreat and like what are they like and how do you conduct them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, I will invite men that I've met personally or have done the have been in spaces with me, whether it's online or privately or in a group. I'll invite them in. So usually, I get them familiar with the practices, with
Hmm.
my techniques, and make sure that one, they're committed, and two, that they're feeling courageous, because these practices do take a lot of commitment and a lot of courage, and most people just aren't ready to do that.
Hmm.
um, so I think that's kind of the big thing for me, finances aside. Like, I want to know a person's commitment to the practice, to learning about themselves, the commitment to their own personal growth journey, and I want to know that they're ready to take that leap of faith and be courageous. um, so yeah, and to also to talk about that is like, yeah, I'm well traveled now, but I wasn't always. Like, I never left the country, the U.S., until I was 29,
Wow.
and I'm 33 now, right? So it's that was a huge leap
Wow.
for myself there. Like, I had been to Mexico and
Oh
like different
wow.
states,
Uh-huh.
but again, talking about that first trip in Croatia, that was like when I took that trip to Croatia, I actually traveled nomadically for a whole year and did like a
Yeah.
whole European tour, came back to the States, toured throughout the States. And while that was immensely powerful and some people that's their dream, and at that time it was for me, and I'm very proud of myself to have done that. I realized maybe shortly, and I was like, okay, I'm the type of person that needs like a home base, or at least to travel for longer periods of time. Because I was doing it like 5 days here, a week there, 3 days, and I was like, it was
Yeah.
too much. Um, so for me, learning that grounding into the land, wherever I may travel, wherever I may go, it's going to be for longer periods of time. So yeah, so the next one, so I have one here in North Georgia for a weekend, and then there's an upcoming one in Italy where it's going to be a full week, and
Okay.
that's sailing through the Sicilian islands. And that one's
Wow.
really close to me because I'm actually in the process. You see some boxes behind me, but I'm in the process of actually getting my dual citizenship to Italy.
Okay.
So I'm going to be leaving to Italy, spending some time out there, and again, it's a huge leap of faith. While I
Mhm.
booked an Airbnb for a couple of weeks, I'm just going to follow my intuition.
Yes.
Big part for me is connecting with my ancestors,
Okay.
connect with my own heritage, my ancestral DNA, and like listening to my intuition and being like, I don't know what's out there for me, but I do
Yeah.
know. And I was looking at one of my vision boards the other day. I do know that I want to be there.
Okay.
And when I went to Croatia and I did that retreat, shortly after I lived in Italy for maybe 2 months, traveling around the south and living in Sardinia for a bit too. And I realized I was like, I am coming back here. This
Wow.
is where I want to be.
Okay.
So traveling there, visiting there, and then realizing like, oh, there's a deeper calling for me here to build community out here.
For sure.
Not only ancestrally, but if you look at like people who are well traveled, they always talk about Italy has got amazing food, right? And
Yes.
as somebody who really takes health and wellness so seriously, like I've always wanted to have land and grow vegetables and grow herbs and like and be in Italy doing that is like, oh, would be such a dream come true. And then the next step would be to, create a family of my own doing that.
Awesome, bro.
The larger scale is, yeah, getting to Italy and then possibly having some land to like invite people from all over the world to come and join these retreats in Italy. So
And
yeah,
and
I'm
And once again, bro, you're embracing the unknown. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know where you're gonna be. You don't even know if it's gonna work out for the better. But you're embracing the unknown, and that's one of the things about traveling that I respect, and I acknowledge that I should be doing more, because when you are traveling to a whole nother country, you're taking a leap of faith, bro. You don't know anybody there. You don't know what the environment is. You don't know the streets. You know what I'm saying? And you're just really going there, truly believing that you're gonna have a great experience, and that's very beautiful to hear. It reminds me when we were first talking and you told me about how you just chose to take a leap of faith and move to Atlanta, bro. And you didn't know why, but you just felt called to Atlanta, and then you ended up, getting a lot of success from it and a lot of good experiences. So yeah, man, I love to hear how faithful you are towards pursuing your goals. I think it's very beautiful, and it's something that I would like to be better at.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it's again a piece of advice if you're open for it and for everybody
I'm
listening
always open for it. Yeah.
is learning. You mentioned this, like stepping out of your comfort zone, but specifically choosing your evolution over your comfort zone, choosing your growth over your comfort zone. I
Mm.
think that is a huge thing most people are not doing. They're staying in their comfort zone. They're staying in their lane.
Yeah.
And as a result, they feel like they're just kind of going through the same old motions, or they're on autopilot like most people are. And
You
again, my
know,
suggestion would be choosing your evolution over comfort.
And I'm gonna tell you a funny story, and you were involved about choosing your comfort zone. And I'm not gonna lie, maybe I didn't master it, but remember we were doing this retreat, and one of the parts of the retreat, I think it was actually at your house behind you. We were doing this cold water plunge, bro, and that's a perfect example of stepping into your comfort zone. And everybody did it, bro. There was like five of us, and I remember everybody was looking. I went last because if I'm being honest, I was scared, bro. I was not looking forward to it. I'm African. Cold is not for me. I've also kind of had traumatic experiences with cold. So when it was my time to actually go in the cold water plunge, bro, that was like, that was me having to face my comfort zone. And, I think you set it at a time for us to do it for 3 minutes. And I think most people did it for 3 minutes. I only did it for a minute and a half. And, I kind of came in out of there feeling ashamed. But what I liked was after I came out, you guys were clapping for me like, yeah, man, like he did it, bro. Like, yo. And I'm like, I thought I was gonna get shamed for not accomplishing the goal of doing it for 3 minutes. But rather than shaming me, y'all supported me. And that meant a lot for me. I was like, yo, bro, okay, man. Like, I did it. Yeah. So I appreciate that level of support. And I feel like for you to able to build that community and foster that community in such a short period of time, bro, I think that speaks to your leadership, honestly. And I think it's very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I like cold immersion therapy, because I don't think anybody likes the cold, right? But it's also a very simple way on learning to, when you go deeper and the more you practice with it, like, yeah, you're going to start at 30 seconds, a minute 30. Then you'll work into the 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's not something that you just master right away, right? It takes time to cultivate that awareness in your body,
Yeah.
to overcome the fear, to have the courage. And yeah, you're right, man. It's like supporting you because I understand how scary it is. I
Yeah.
understand the fears. And I also will support, like, I've had men that will be like, that will get in and all of a sudden they'll dip their feet in and be like, oh, I got to get out. And I'll still celebrate them for doing that, because it's
Yeah.
like you showing up and you actually admitting, like, hey, I'm afraid of this, but I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a go. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yes.
But at least you showed up. I think
Yes.
at least you made the commitment and took the action, and that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And I think that's the heart of becoming the best version of ourselves in entrepreneurship. I think sometimes, we all know what we're supposed to do, but it's just a matter of showing up and showing up consistently. Content marketing isn't really that hard. Like, we're all on social media. We kind of know what to post. It's actually doing it consistently. It's the same thing with podcasting. Just simply showing up to a podcast will put me ahead of much other people, because I think you are the one telling me this, and I've heard this from another video. After like 10 podcasts, if you do more than 10 podcasts, that already puts you at the top 1%, because a lot of people just quit after like the 10th or ninth one for whatever the reason is. So, I think what I got from that story is, just showing up for yourself, and, not being too hard on yourself for failing. And not necessarily getting to the where you want, but kind of celebrating the fact that you actually put yourself out there. And I'm glad that you like gave me that experience, because it's something that was very memorable for me, and it kind of made me realize, like, yo, it's okay if you didn't achieve what you wanted to do, especially if you have a strong supportive men supporting you, to lift you up. So that's what I got from that experience for sure. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, Nick, was I was very curious, because you have a lot of wisdom when it comes to spirituality, and I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite spiritual practice, and how does it serve you?
yeah, so I think it varies depending on what I'm feeling,
Yeah.
because I've studied a variety of modalities. It depends on what I'm moving through. Um, what seems to be my go-to is always a meditation practice. Is always making time for stillness. Is making time for self-reflection. I love yoga too, because the essence of it is self-inquiry,
Hmm.
right? And it's kind of essential wisdom to learning more about your body, and then living with that awareness and learning grace.
Yeah.
Um, I think giving ourselves grace as men is something that's malnourished, right? We're always so hard on ourselves. We have so many demands,
For
as
sure.
demands from work, demands from life, demands from society. So like giving ourselves the space to give grace in my meditation, whether it's me showing up for my yoga mat, whether it's me sometimes just sitting down, pen to piece of paper and writing and reflecting and
Yes.
journaling. Um, I love chanting. I actually, so my harmonium is right next to me. I love playing the harmonium and chanting. It's a very heart opening experience for me. And mantras. Um, Cold shock therapy is a good one.
Hmm.
Sauna is a great opportunity. I like to meditate in the sauna. Um, what else? I would say getting into nature. I think getting into nature is such a big part of me connecting to God or the universe or infinite intelligence. Nature is a huge, it's part of transcendentalism, is like you connecting to something larger than yourself when you're in nature. So
Hmm.
those are all practices that are kind of my go-tos to learning more about myself and being able to share that with others.
Yeah, man, I love that. And, one of the practices that we both share is meditation. We both find meditation very insightful. Can you speak towards how that helps you? Yes.
Yeah, I think meditation is misunderstood. I think a lot of people try to meditate and they don't. They say, "Oh, I can't meditate," right? Or I can't meditate. I can't do that." And it's like, well, so in yoga, they have a philosophy called the eight limb path. And yoga to most people is the asana practice, which is the third limb out of the eight limbs. Okay. The fourth limb is pranayama, breathing. Most people don't know how to breathe properly. Most people aren't taking these deep diaphragmatic breaths. They're doing shallow breathing. So when you learn a variety of breathwork techniques, that gives you the foundation for meditation. So now we're breathing, okay? Then there's two other limbs that I would describe them as, um, they're called pratyahara, and then there's dhyana or dharana. I forget the order, but it's pratyahara is basically you withdrawing your senses. So now, what they believe in a lot in the Yoga Sutras is like one of the biggest truths is you learning how to experience your senses, right? The five senses: taste, touch, smell, what we can see, what we hear. Most people aren't experiencing the world truly through the five senses. Most people then don't even know how to withdraw the five senses. They're constantly being triggered by what they see. They're constantly being triggered by what they smell. They're constantly being triggered by what they hear. But when you learn how to breathe properly, when you learn how to withdraw your senses, and then the next step after that is focus. And they talk about in the Yoga Sutras this abhyasa, this willful focus. When you can take all of your energy and focus on one action, one thought, one thing, and you can really focus on that, then you've achieved meditation. So most people just think that, oh, I'm going to sit down, close my eyes, and meditate. Well, of course, you're not going to just go into a meditation like that. You're not breathing properly. You're not becoming aware of your senses, let alone with sense withdrawal. You're struggling with your ability to focus all of your energy on one thing, a mantra, an action, a thought. And then the byproduct of that step, that process is now you're in meditation. So that's kind of how I would describe the process, and why meditation is something that takes a lot of practice to get there. Even for myself, sometimes I'm not able to just sit down and get into a meditative state. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes consistency for me showing up. And that's in the Yoga Sutras, the whole philosophy of the abhyasa is like you have to show consistency, and you have to be patient with yourself over time. This isn't something that you do once and you just pick it up, right?
Hmm.
It's like anything in the world, right? You got a cavity, you don't just brush your teeth once and it's gone. You don't go to the gym one time and expect to bench 225. It takes consistent effort, showing up consistently, and it takes a long period of time to be able to practice and do these things.
Yeah, man. When it comes to meditation, I feel like a lot of people don't quite understand the goal of it. I feel like a lot of people complicate it and they're kind of staying still and wondering, hey, am I doing this right or wrong? That's not the point. The point is really to kind of get to a point where you're experiencing peace and you're quieting your mind. And I feel like a lot of people kind of complicate it. And so they don't actually get the benefits of it. But like you said, meditation is not one of those things you just do it and then you become enlightened and everything makes sense. It's kind of like, you just slowly but surely, once you keep on doing it consistently, the art of it will kind of gradually show in your day-to-day life, and you become a lot more mindful of how you treat other people and do things, but it's kind of something that's very hard to explain. You just gotta have to internalize it for yourself, you know
Yeah, and it's also why it's helpful to have a guide or a mentor who can guide you through the meditation and get you to understand that process. And ultimately it's on you to like do the practices and consistently show up over long periods of time. I think that's where a lot of people have the result, like, oh, the result of meditation is quiet my mind. And then they show up and they show up and they're so attached to the result of quieting their mind that they don't do it. And that's
yeah.
another part of manifesting, like what you're looking for is learning to let go, letting go of the attachments of the mind, of letting go of the attachment of the mind wanting to get it right or wanting to get peace of mind or finally I've attained it. It's like we're so obsessed in this results driven society of obtaining and doing that we forget to just create for the joy of creation and to show up and take action just for the joy of taking action.
Hmm. Yeah, man, and I love that you said that, man. I'm a big fan of meditating, and I definitely I definitely recommend that more people look into it. I'm not gonna lie. When I went to college, I used to take meditation classes, and me and my friend, we actually used to laugh at people who did it. Back then, we were young and immature, and we didn't understand the value of it. But we thought it was kind of silly. We thought you were just sitting down and nothing was actually happening. And it's kind of funny. Fast forward like 6, 7 years later, and now I'm trying to incorporate it into my daily life, and I understand deeply how it's helping me. But I think that's something that everyone has to kind of come to on their own and be able to figure out for themselves.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And so, man, one thing that I like about you, man, is that you're very well read. And I feel like you and I have read a lot of books that both have impacted our lives. Can you speak to the top three books that impacted your life and why did they have that impact on you?
Top three, but it's hard to narrow it down to a few of them. But I'll share some books that come to mind. The Yoga Sutras, absolutely. And I actually have an interpretation of it right here. It's Tantra of the Yoga Sutras. This is something that I always come back to and continue to study. Um, One of my other dear friends, mentors, Shaman Durek, called a book called Spirit Hacking. It is a great introduction into learning shamanic techniques and getting started in your own shamanic pathway and your own shamanic journey. Another mentor of mine, John Wineland, wrote a book about kind of the polarities between masculine and feminine dynamics, specifically gearing towards a new paradigm of masculine energy for men in relationships. The book is called From the Core.
From the core.
Um, the Bible of men's books that I love is The Way of the Superior Man by
Mm.
Data. Again, something to always go back and reflect on. Um, so yeah, those are like the ones that are coming to me, the top ones coming to me.
Yeah, man, that The Way of the Superior Man, that's a great book. I actually recently finished reading that book, and that book definitely helped me with navigating relationships and learning how to pursue my purpose more with conviction, despite what other people, even in your relationship, and how actually pursuing your purpose can bring a lot more excitement to your relationship because you're feeling your own masculine core, you know? Yeah, man, I agree, man. Those are some great books, bro, and I'm glad that you were able to provide them. You know, another thing that I wanted to ask you about, Nick, is essentially what you know. I know you're constantly moving, and I guess this is just me out of curiosity. You said you're gonna move to Italy. And you know, I'm just kind of curious, what is inspiring you to move to Italy? Like, I know you're Italian, and like I know you like to follow your intuition. Like, what part of your intuition is telling you like, hey, this is what I need to do, you know?
Well, it was kind of the opposite. I think
Okay.
there was a part of me when I traveled there that loved it so much, and I knew I wanted to go back. And then there was a part of me that was like, oh, I want to go. I always knew I wanted to go to Italy. I honestly love the culture. I love the food. I love the land. And yeah, there is some strong ancestral ties for me now that I'm going through the process of getting my dual citizenship there. But I would say that there was a part of me that was still afraid. Like recently, I always knew in the back of my mind, hey, I wanted to go there. I wanted to do that. But in my mind, my survival mind had put up these limitations like, oh, you don't
Hmm.
have your house, you don't have a family yet, you don't have this, that, and this. So you can't do it yet. You're not ready. And I was like, oh, and I really sat with that and I said, you know what? That's an opportunity for me to prove my willpower to do good. That's an opportunity for me to step into my courage because my survival mind saying like, oh, you're not ready, you have to do this and you got to do that, and you know, you have all of these things and you have all these comforts. You doing that's going to step outside of your comfort zone. I was like, oh, that's where my growth is, that's where my highest evolution is. So I again just encouraged myself to step into my evolution, to step into my highest growth, and choose that over my comfort zone. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm embarking on that journey.
Yeah, bro, I'm in full support of it, and I definitely would love to see you there. Hey, man, who knows? Maybe I even visit, man, because I want to do more international traveling. The only thing is, if I'm being honest with myself, I just don't know many people outside of America, so I wouldn't feel so comfortable traveling in a place where I don't know anybody. But if I knew people there, I'll be more open to actually doing
And
international
that's it.
travel.
That's a big point. Let's talk about that because people are scared of just traveling alone or even just being alone.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? They choose relationships that don't serve them. They
Yes.
they stay with family members or friends that are at a certain level and they know they want to go to a higher level, but they choose to be at that lower frequency level because they're scared,
Yes.
because they've never done it before. So, but I always say this to guys is like, if you want to get somewhere you've never gone, you have to do something you've never done.
For sure. Yep. I like that. If you have to go somewhere that if you want to get somewhere that you've never gone, you have to do something that you never done. I love that. Such a powerful quote, man. And yo, I'm grateful for the inspiration that you have provided, man. You know, there's so much value to learn from this podcast, and I can go on and on and on about all the stuff that we've done, but I just want to say, yo, I'm truly grateful for you coming into my life for a short period of time. I felt like I've learned a lot from you, and and you introduced me to a lot of people and helped me create some friends here. And I hope that when you go to Italy, you're able to kind of create the same community that you did for people in Atlanta, and recreate that in Italy, because I feel like loneliness is an endemic in itself, especially amongst men. I feel like throughout the world, everyone is just suffering, and everyone quietly wants a friend. Everyone, that inner child in them kind of wants to feel loved and have that friend, but sometimes it's hard to initiate that and actually start the conversations to break the cycle of loneliness, right?
Yeah, and I also will point out there's a huge difference with loneliness and being alone.
Mm.
Being alone gets a bad reputation, but we have to, in order to really find who we are, we have to be alone. In order to understand what the relationship is that we want to attract in our life, we have to be alone. In order to find the dream, you have to be alone to do all these things. But loneliness comes from a place of lack. It comes from you attaching to other people and you attaching to outcomes and the results. And so, what's the common thing is that people will be people pleasers, or they'll spend time around other people that don't serve them. And then all of a sudden it's gone and they're like, oh, I'm lonely. Well, yeah, because you were attached to all the wrong things, or all these, I wouldn't even say wrong, all these different people that weren't serving you. But that's the beauty of life, is that now it becomes a blessing in disguise. Now that heartbreak, or now that traumatic situation, that painful situation becomes your deepest purpose. That heartbreak becomes a reason why you start your personal growth journey. And that's, I think that's a big distinction, learning the difference between loneliness and being alone.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bros. I'm glad that you said that. One of my good friends actually said a quote that I like to remember. He said, "I'm not by myself. I'm with myself." I love that quote. It's like you're enjoying your own company, and I feel like if more people can do that, there wouldn't be such a strong need to feel attached to all these unnecessarily materialistic things. And I feel like once you can really enjoy your own company, then actually spending time with other people becomes a lot more better because you love yourself first. So
Yeah,
I completely agree with you, boss. you know
yeah, yeah. Thanks
yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah, man. So before we end this podcast, I just want to, I know you got a lot going on, and I would just want to help promote the services that you got, and what you got going on. So are there any socials or anything that you would like to promote? I know you got the retreat coming up. Do you want to talk more about that, or any other things you got going on?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to just get in touch with me is send me a message on Instagram. I what I do is offer my digital book, The Healthy Rites of Passages for the Modern Man. I just give every guy a copy of that complimentary, my gift. When you go to my page, or if you shoot me a message, anybody who sends me a message or shoots me a follow, I always say, hey, here's my book, to check it out. And then there's also an exclusive video, a 5-minute video with a special invitation for men who are looking for more inner peace and that sense of community and belonging. And yeah, if you put in your email, you'll get the book, and then there's that special invitation to support you. And hopefully, I talk more to anybody who's interested. So
Yeah, man. So y'all heard it. And what's your Instagram so people can actually like know how to get there? Yeah.
yeah, it's just my name, Nick Capolino, Nick Capolino, Capolino.
Great. Yeah, awesome. And before we end this podcast, I want to end it with a piece of wisdom that you personally gave me that I think about often. And you said in one of our retreats that we're all seeking intimacy. And the way you broke down intimacy was, you broke it down like this, you know, intimacy, into me, I see you. And I thought about that all day. That was like a mind twister for me. But yeah, intimacy, into me, I see you. And I think that's such a powerful quote because I feel like once we can start really seeing the God in us and the greatness in us, we could start seeing that in other people. And that starts to pay dividends in ways we can never imagine, you know?
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
I'm grateful you shared that with me, brother.
Thank you. You're the one, I got it from you. So thank you, boss. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, honored to speak here. It's such a value connecting with you, and look forward to more.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Nick. All right, boss. We'll have a good one, man.
All right, peace and love.
Peace and love, boss.